Rob Lawless. I sing for RISTRIKT, play drums for a band called Lords of the Opium Church, and have played in other bands such as Real Sickies and Fuckered. I've been working here at the physics lab for 5 years now. Worked with some pretty cool bands. Done everything from Ray Gun Cowboys to Mortillery to Weapon, Devil's Sons, all the Real Sickies stuff. Lots of really cool bands I've recorded here, and I've been lucky to be small parts or big parts of lots of them. This project started, I guess, out of me wanting to do vocal stuff again and kind of step away from what I'd been doing previously. Obviously, I thought of Mike because I had worked with him for years before, and he's very, very good. So working with people and putting them up to that standard of his was hard, so it just seemed easier for me to convince him to do another thing with me.
Probably played my first gig in kindergarten, I'd say, at Show and Tell. On the floor in a circle, and I sat in the middle. I played Sunshine of Your Love by Cream. 1982, I was 17, and Discharge played in Vancouver, BC, and I wasn't old enough to get in. So a friend of mine said he would drive to Seattle. So how stoked was I? Mega. Watching the guitar player stand on stage, standing in a stance, just standing there ripping these riffs, chewing his gum. See it live it's just an amazing thing. It's funny because a few years later, I was in the Dayglow Abortions on tour, and we were playing in Trenton, New Jersey at the City Gardens. I think it was DRI and Discharge and Dayglows. Joined in '85 and then on and off for a couple of decades. Rob and I had played in Fuckered. We hadn't played for quite a while, and Rob just called me this last November and asked if I had some punk rock riffs. And I have a big black book of riffs, songs that haven't been used in various other projects from my past.
And I had a pile of my own too, so I asked him, and he was pretty stoked. We contemplated using the same people, but that kind of just feels like the same band that it used to be. And it's not the same band that it used to be. I met Dave previous to this. I was on tour with the Real Mackenzies, and Dave was playing bass for the Real Mackenzies. And so got a lot of time hanging out with him and getting to know each other. Thought it'd be a good idea to ask him. And I thought it'd be kind of cool growing up, definitely being a big fan of Dayglow Abortions and SNFU, and kind of knowing them both, and being a big fan of the way Dave plays and being a big fan of the way Mike plays. It seemed really like a good idea to put that together. And they were both just really excited to do it. And they'd never met each other before either, which was kind of neat. Like, they met each other here for the first time in this room.
I was like, wow, that's a name. Mr. Dave Bacon. Cool.
Edmonton from Saskatchewan in '83. Played in Ghost Shirt Society. Got pretty infamous pretty quick at a band, Government of God. My first 2 gigs were with the Dead Kennedys. I was working for SNFU as a roadie. It was just around when Evan quit, and a couple of weeks later, Jimmy quit, and they said, "Hey Bacon, you want to play bass?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." I did a couple of years with them, touring extensively through North America, and then after the SNFU thing, I got a lot of notoriety as a bass player. Started band Love's Laughter, went off in a different direction completely, back to playing guitar. Yeah, and then I had an accident in 2004 and broke my leg really bad and ended up having an amputation a couple of years later. Always in and out of the hospital, and so I started doing my own stuff at home, the Harvey Cartel, I called it. And then ended up back in SNFU back in 2014 and did a bunch of touring with them through Europe and Australia. We're landing here now, doing RISTRIKT. I met Rob a couple of years ago doing some work with Liam Copeland in a band called Dangers of Love. We just came in to record one track. Playing with the Real Mackenzies last year. We were doing a tour with the Real Sickies on the cusp of the pandemic. We had to shut down the tour, but we got to hang a bit.
Just kind of enjoyed being around him and working with Dave, so We had stayed in touch. Garrett had already played with Dave before, and I just love Garrett. He's got a really good personality. He's charming, he's cute.
Started playing drums when I was 9. The book that we had at that time, just seeing like the guy on the cover, it's like this dude that was like playing in like his, like, you know, playing like with a marching drum on like his side, and like he's wearing like a cummerbund. Like, that's not who I want to look like, you know. I want to fucking be playing some fast stuff. As years went by, progression of my playing became, it sort of started to grow exponentially, where I wasn't really held back by a glass ceiling of having bad technique. Started playing in bands in junior high. First one that anyone probably would have really heard was the Morningside Band. And very shortly, while that band was still around, actually, the Wolf Notes started, which is kind of my first serious touring kind of bands that I was in. Our first tour actually with that band in my graduating year of high school, I can't believe my parents let me go. So we were in like Montreal or something on the night of my like grad, and that was kind of set the tone of things to come, you know. Then Fire Next Time was the most recent band. The bands have very different sonic qualities to them. So Dave and I had played in a band before this called Raven McCoy.
I knew they already kind of had the groove thing down, and I think they were playing like 70s rock, so that shit's all groove.
Rob and I were kind of getting to know each other. He'd come into my work and stuff periodically, and Fire Next Time was also on Stomp Records, and the Real Sickies had just gotten signed to them. You know, started with Gavin about, oh yeah, like label mates, you know, whatever, like that kind of thing. And he's like, man, like I got this punk band, like I want you to like play drums on it. Rob sort of put all of this together. It's sort of him and Mike's kind of baby there a little bit, you know. It's cool.
All kind of worked out. Garrett had played with Dave before. I'd played with Mike before. I wanted to do something with Dave. Mike was there. Just naturally kind of happened. Bam.
Dave and I came in to do a T-Rex cover with the Real Sickies for their new record. And I was playing congas and he was playing bass. And so yeah, we were just kind of gabbing about it outside, and that's sort of when Rob let on that it was like, oh yeah, it was going to be Dave, Mike, Rob, and myself.
Mike would pick me up once a week. We'd come to the studio. I wouldn't have any idea of what was going on for the most times, and we'd talk about an idea on the way down here, and he'd have a riff. We'd come here, he'd play me the riff, I'd hear it, we'd lay a drum track down, build it up, we'd talk what I was gonna sing about, and we'd all happen. We'd spend about 4 or 5 hours on a song, and by the time we left on the drive home, there would be a song to listen to.
He would send them to me as they were coming up with tracks, and like I kind of would listen to them passively at the time, because it wasn't really sure when there was gonna be like, we're going, you know?
We kept doing it out of nothing else to do, and all of a sudden 4 songs turned into 6 songs, to 8 songs, to 10 songs, and then we had a whole album.
I'm quite happy with the way things are working out. We're right in the middle of doing the album. What's coming out of those speakers is quite satisfying to me.
I think our rhythm section got along like really, really good. We were sort of at that stage started calling each other like, that's my drummer, that's my bass player, you know?
We've got a keen sense of what each other's doing, and we've got a way of communicating now, body language and musically, of course verbally, because that guy never stops talking, but.
The name RISTRIKT, just because of the times that we're living in 2020, 2021, with all the restrictions, I just thought it was a neat word.
The songs are great, so that makes it really easy. Lots of riffage and really varied.
These dudes all shred at what they do, so it's like it kind of forced me to have to keep my game pretty high. Songs are too good to fuck around with. Players are too good to waste anybody's time. If this is a stinker, I'll fucking quit music.
We had a few guest appearances on the record. We had Yon from the Ray Gun Cowboys lay some guitar down on a track called Promised Land. And we had Brad Graves from the Devil's Sons do some vocals on the same track. I did a track called Drugs with Matt Jack from Bow Brigade. Matt's one of my oldest friends. I've done a million things with him over the years. We also did a track called No Angels, No Demons with Mark Russell from Citizen Rage. Mark's another one of my really old friends.
Let's just do some songs, Rob said, but there's talk of doing an album with Wasted Wax Records. Wow, like we're gonna do a record of these demos that were just a conversation. Now it's come to this, it's like, fuck, that's cool. We're all pretty stoked.
Just reaching out to Bart, I guess. I'd seen some of the records he'd been putting out. I've seen he put out Mandible Claw, Citizen Rage, and some cool stuff. And I'd mixed the Citizen Rage last album that they did, and Mark was the one telling me about them. And so I just reached out to Bart and said, hey dude, we're doing a record that you might be interested in. And he said, send the demos. I sent the demos. He said, cool. I said, sweet. Now we're doing this.
A band called Western Death is on that label. They played with SNFU quite a few times. We started doing this, and Rob's like, yeah, Wasted Wax, you know those guys? I'm like, oh, Wasted Wax, Wasted Wax, Wasted Wax. Oh, wait, that's Bart.
Getting to do this record with Wasted Wax is super cool. I very much have an affinity for like regional labels that do a lot of stuff based out of the province or state or whatever. As much as I really enjoy like reissue labels that get the licensing for records that we love that aren't in print anymore, there's still something to be said about labels that have a very serious regional focus to them, where they're really doing it out of a labor of love. I love records so much. Like that's like my favorite thing in the world. So it always makes me happy to have another one that's got some of my drumming on it or whatever.